What's up, everybody? Welcome to Class Action. My name is PLD.
And I'm Richard Eric Jarvie, and you're watching the classiest movie show on the interwebs.
It is the very much so the classiest movie show in the interwebs. How you doing today, Jarvie?
I'm doing good. You messed up your intro, though.
I always
Kind
mess
of
up the intro, no matter
feeling
what
slow today?
happens. A little slow. I always say our lines. I don't know why that is, but like I can't get a hold of me. I want to say, I'm supposed to say, it's me, it's PLD, and then let you say your thing, and then we say it's a class. But it never works out because I always want to jump the gun. I always feel it's instinctive to say, "Welcome to Class Action," right? But eventually, you think that after like was it 46 episodes that I would get it right by now, but
It would
I'm
feel
never gonna.
it would feel weird if you got it right now. I feel like this is the rhythm that we're in,
It
so
probably
this
would.
is what we got to go with.
It really
Well,
probably would.
but we're talking about Ed Harris today.
I'm excited. I mean, I got to admit, I'm excited about this. It's funny because I gotta throw you under the bus a little bit. Everybody thinks this is my episode, right? Everybody thinks this is my. I chose it. Jarvie proposed this episode. Jarvie said we're gonna do the Judge versus Kodachrome because they wanted to do the father-son relationship. It's been a staple of action movie anatomy, been a staple of action industries. We always want to do like the father-son relationship, and these two movies are great at that. The Judge has Robert Duvall and Robert Downey Jr., and the Kodachrome has Jason Sudeikis and Ed Harris. And yes, it is Ed Harris. So you might already know where my snap judgment's going to lie. I'm not going to. That's a spoiler ahead of time, maybe. But once he said that, I was like, well, it's Ed Harris. Absolutely, I'm going to talk about that. I'll do this because I love this movie. I hadn't even seen The Judge, and I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
I hadn't seen Kodachrome. That was
Which is funny.
like seeing Kodachrome for the first time made me want to do this episode, these movies.
Yeah, that's right. You come to me like, I love this. I got to admit, what I love about recent times is that Jarvie has come to me in DMs and been like, dude, I get Ed Harris now. I
Totally.
love Ed Harris now. I'm like, right? So he came to this idea. I'm like, all right, you know what? I've heard about The Judge. I've heard it's interesting. And I've heard like there's a lot of father son aspects to it, which is a good thing. I'm like, all right, you know what? If you're gonna tell me I'm gonna do an Ed Harris movie, I'll do an Ed Harris movie, and I don't care what you're putting up against it. So I'll watch The Judge, and I watched The Judge, and I loved The Judge. I loved the movie. So like these are two movies that I really enjoyed. So I'm gonna put them up against each other in 5 custom-made categories to see which one will prevail in the end.
Can you stay objective though?
I'm really going to try my best to stay objective. I really, really, truly am. Whether you believe here, I know. I bet the chat is saying right now that I'm not going to be able to stay objective.
No, I don't think you can either.
I probably can't, and I'll be honest with you. One of the categories is probably the most. I can't. We'll get there. But I will do my best, especially if I can't. I will admit I can't probably say objective to one category, but at least 4 of the other categories I'll say as objective as possible. But before we talk about the categories, we always break these down to 5 custom-made categories to see which one wins. We always have a couple games we like to play. The first game we usually play is what would Ed Harris play?
What would he play?
Well, we kind of know what he would play because he's actually in this film. I love the fact that we're actually talking Ed Harris. That's the first thing. You know how much I love Ed Harris. I think that Ed Harris is one of the greatest supporting actors of all time. Every movie he's ever been in, he really kind of amps it up. Like even if it's a bad movie, he makes it watchable. If it's a good movie, he makes it great. He always puts his 110% in, and that's why he's my favorite actor. So I always like to put him into scenarios where to see which other characters he would play. But he actually is in this film, Kodachrome. So we can't really honestly play this game. I mean, I could theoretically say what he would play in The Judge, but I mean, it's
Vera Farmiga's part.
it's pretty,
She
it's
could
pretty
pull it
obvious he would play Vera Farmiga's part, and exactly he would pull it off better than she could, obviously, because it's Ed Harris. But so it just honestly didn't really make sense for this entire episode to do that. So we're gonna skip that category, but instead we're going to play the public defender. And Jarvie, I know you love talking about the public defender, and I know you like explaining the public defender. So I'm going to give you the stage. Explain to us what the public defender is.
You know, for the first time, the public defender kind of makes sense as a legal pun in this case,
It kind of does. I get what you're
right?
saying there.
Because we're talking about the judge.
Right.
So the public defender and why we're actually called Class Action, we figured we would be a legal pun type show. So we had segments that were kind of like phrases from the legal world, and we figured we'd go ride the wave. We haven't done that, but we still kept the names. So in movies, usually the public defenders, they are depicted as overworked, underpaid. They might get nervous, they might throw up, and they might have to come up with things on the spot, just like
We're about to.
what happens in The Judge. I can't remember the actor's name who plays the first defender, the counselor who fires. He looks like Zach Braff, but I can't remember his.
It's not. It is.
Yeah.
Dax Shepard. That's what it is.
Dax Shepard. That's right. That's right. So yeah, public defenders. They are usually when they show up in court because of their not poor. Those poor workers are overworked, is what I mean, and they might have to show up in court underprepared. Right. So a public defender for us means that we haven't prepared the segment. We don't know the topic, and we have a very special guest who is going to give us a question or a topic that we will have to come up with a top 5 list of on the spot.
It's not always a top 5 list. We always kind of say it's a top 5 list. But sometimes people surprise us. I don't know what he's going to do. He could do anything he wants right now. It's really going to be his. We're really at his mercy. But it is Action Army General, one of our friends. He's been on the show before, and he's been a great guest on the show before. And he's on my Star Wars show on PLD Project with Jarvie already. Matty Gunner, my friend. How are you doing, my friend?
What's up, boys? How we doing? How we doing?
Doing pretty good. I asked you yesterday. I said, like, you know what? You want to come on? We're doing Kodachrome versus the Judge. You want to come on and give us a public defender? And Maddie's like, hell yeah, I'll do it. So,
yeah, I love the Judge. It's I could watch that movie over and over and over and not get bored of it. It's just so good, so good. And I like the feeling of you two being at my mercy. I'm always happy for that.
It's kind of scary. I gotta admit.
I got a top 5 list for you, Paul. The worst top 5 Ed Harris performances. Go.
I don't know if I could do that. Don't make me do
exactly.
That. Don't make me do that. Don't make me do that.
All right.
It's the Bob Dylan movie. That's the worst one because he's only in it for like 2 seconds. So
wow, you really threw Ed Harris under the bus.
Masked and anonymous, and it's not his fault. It's like he's in it for 30 seconds. So like I'm just gonna throw the. I'm actually more throwing the film under the bus because they only let Ed Harris be in it for 30 seconds. So like that's why I'm like, yeah, it's not.
That's why the film's so bad because he's only in it for 30 seconds.
Exactly. It's like you tease it. Like I'd almost rather him not be in it at all. Because, like, you tease him and it's like, that's all you're going to give him? That's all you're going to give the fucking legend Ed Harris? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah. No, you can't do that to Ed Harris.
Absolutely. So, you have something for us, Maddie? You have something?
I do. You guys are ready for this?
Probably not, but we'll go for it anyway.
All right.
That's the whole goal.
Public defender for this episode. Top 5 Ed Harris performances. It's like, it's not that.
You just blew my mind. I'd be here for 3 more hours trying to determine.
Top 5 movie lawyers.
Movie lawyers. Okay. Oh, I like where this is going. Okay. All right. I like this. Do you want to go first, Jarvie?
Legal professionals. I will allow you to have legal professionals.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to start off with an easy one because I just rewatched this. Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men.
God damn it! That was my first choice too. Of course it was. You can't handle the truth. That is, Lieutenant Caffey is one of the greatest lawyers of especially the, I'd say, action movie anatomy universe kind of thing. It's like one of those things like where like it's just definitely TC Legend right in our wheelhouse exactly. That's a great first pick. I'm not.
I argued it on general debate, but somehow I got screwed in a technicality.
Yeah, you did. I'm only a host of that show. I don't judge the show, so it's not my fault. All right, let me think. Off the top of my head, I'll throw another one in there. How about? I got to think of his character's name.
I can't think of it.
Matthew McConaughey, Jake Briggins in A Time to Kill.
What movie is that?
Time to Kill? You know, in 1996, A Time to Kill. It's, Matthew McConaughey's in it. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. It's a racial divide when Samuel Jackson's character kills like the guys who raped his daughter and everything else, and he's a very southern. Yeah. It's really cool. You should actually, if you haven't seen it, John Grisham.
Okay, so
it's John Grisham film.
Okay. I don't have a good one, so I'm gonna
Yeah, ready?
Swing with this one. Michael B. Jordan in the movie Mercy.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. I'll get
There's
that.
probably a more iconic one, but I'm totally blanking at the moment. So this is the one I pulled.
You're blanking already. My
I
God,
am.
we're only two. You're only telling your second choice, Jarvie. What are you doing? You're gonna fail completely. All right, you want to throw it to me? Throw it to me. All right, fine. How about this? We're talking Ed Harris, right? I saw this Ed Harris play this role on the stage in New York City. It's not exactly the movie version, but I'll throw it back to the movie version. Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Dude, do you know I haven't seen that movie?
You've never seen that movie?
No.
Wow.
Jarvis, that's a big one. That's a big one. Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch is phenomenal. Ed Harris is better, but that's just me, of course, on stage. But Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird is a classic lawyer performance. You really should see it. You really should see it.
Mm.
You're
I've
done.
got nothing.
You got
You
nothing?
can go, this is why I opened it up to legal professionals. You can have judges, you can have paralegals if you want.
Wow.
I can throw it in there if you're done. You want me to throw another one
Okay,
in there?
no. I've got one. What's his face? Jesus, this is not my day. Give me a second. Why am I blanking on this dude's name? The movie is Fracture. The movie is Fracture.
Fracture?
Yeah. Why am I blanking? Jesus, Blade Runner 2049. Why am I blanking?
Gosling?
Gosling. Jesus Christ. I couldn't pull Gosling. Dude,
Gosling.
this shows
Wow.
how friggin' hungover I am today.
Ryan Gosling as Billy Beecham.
Fracture,
That's not a bad choice. That's not a bad choice. I'll give you that.
It's not a good one either.
Okay, I'm going to throw this one out there. Maybe not one of my favorites, but for the Action Army, for Nikki Therese, Egg Lord, I'll throw it out there. In there, Elle Woods, Legally Blonde.
Oh, good one.
Yeah,
Right?
good one.
Not exactly the most traditional sense, but she's a comedic role. She's very funny and she's very powerful, very strong female performance. So I'll give that. I know Nikki Therese loves Elle Woods. She even wants to name her pronoun character after that, some similar way. So I'll give that one Elle Woods. So there we go with that.
I should have gone with Jim Carrey and Liar Liar.
That's a great one. Why don't you go ahead and do that? You can do that. I'll give you that. Jim Carrey and Liar Liar. The pen is blue. The fucking pen is
The color of the pen that I hold in my hand.
Why? My favorite part of that the whole movie. My favorite part of the whole movie. It's I object. Why? Because it's goddamn wrong for my case, or whatever it is. It's absolutely deficient in my case. That's a good film. I love that movie so much. I gotta be honest with you. And I know maybe it's not the greatest film, but it's definitely one that I love.
It's enjoyable.
Exactly. Sure. Anything else? Anyone else you want to throw out there, Jarvie, as a potential?
I think we're done. I think we both got 3 in now.
All right, we'll go with that. I will throw one more in there just because I want to, because I can think of it off the top of my head. Denzel as Beckett in Philadelphia. Very solid performance and a great time. I'm a big Denzel fan anyway, so anytime I can see Denzel, I'm all over it. So good one there. So all right, do we pass muster there, Maddie?
Yeah, you did. Let me quickly give you my top 3 that I came up with.
I really want to hear that. Yeah, absolutely.
My honorable mention, Joe Pesci as Vincent Gambini and My Cousin Vinny.
That is a great one. That's why I can't believe I forgot. I was just talking to Ben Bateman about that yesterday, about that movie. He just watched that movie the other day for the first time. And I'm like, this is how did you not see this movie growing? But go ahead. So anyway, who else you got? Mickey,
played by Matthew McConaughey in Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh,
Lincoln Lawyer.
That's I forgot about that one. That's a good one, yeah.
I was going to go Fletch in Liar Liar, but I decided my number 2 should be Daniel Kaffee, played by Tom Cruise, obviously, TC Legend and A Few Good Men. My number 1 also just so happens to be my favorite Metallica album. It's Arthur Kirkland, played by Al Pacino in And Justice for All.
Oh, I forgot about that one too.
Me too.
Good call, Maddie. That's a great list. I like where your mind's on that one. Good job.
Pacino kills it in that movie. So good.
Speaking of a Pacini, you could always go with Keanu Reeves and Devil's Advocate as well. That's another good choice.
Oh, damn, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and there's another like off the grid movie starring Chris Evans where he plays like a punk type lawyer, sort of like this. And it's like he drinks, does drugs, parties, but he's like a good lawyer. Like a really weird movie, but based on a true story. Can't remember the name. Lawyer, Chris Evans lawyer. Google helps me out here.
Is it Puncture?
Puncture, that's the one.
I don't think I've never seen it, so I don't know.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a weird movie, but it was pretty cool.
That's a movie I'm going to have to take a look at because I
very untraditional type of lawyer.
I love Jarvis' taste, so I'm sure that I'll actually probably appreciate it as well. But Maddie, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks,
I appreciate
buddy.
you coming on for
Thanks, Jed. It's always a pleasure.
And you always give us some good questions and good conversations. So if you want to see Matty Gunner again, actually we've been doing on PLD Products, my own YouTube channel, we've been doing some Mandalorian reviews. And I think we're going to continue doing a Star Wars show. We kind of like last minute decided, like we just reviewed the Mandalorian season finale, and myself, Richard, Maddie, and Bador have talked about continuing some kind of Star Wars show. I've kind of touched it a little bit, not sure where it's going to go, but we want to continue talking about Star Wars because we love talking about Star Wars. So keep a look for that. We'll continue with that as much as we can. But for now, Maddie, I appreciate you. Take care of yourself. Thanks for being on the show. And I salute you. We will see you next time.
Thanks, bud.
Hey, guys.
See you later.
Where can the folks find you? Where can the folks find you, Matty?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, on Instagram, Matty_Gunner, and every Wednesday and Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on the Wild Jones Podcast Network, talking MMA, boxing, kickboxing, all combat sports.
Perfect. All right, my friend. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time.
Salute.
All right.
Bye.
All right, Jave. Let's see where we're going. We're going to move on now to our 5 custom-made categories. I will give you the categories first, and then we will go into our snap judgment, which is more about you than it is about me at this point, because we know where I'm going to lie. I'm not going to lie, because we are talking about, once again, the judge, Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall.
I love that you pulled a poster that has art written on it.
Yeah, I know. It's the best one I could find. I could download.
So you pulled like...
Right.
All good. Just putting you on the spot here.
I know. It is what it is. Versus Kodachrome, Jason Sudeikis, and, of course, my boy Ed Harris. So
Don't forget Elizabeth Olsen.
And we're going to get into that as well. We're going to get into Elizabeth Olsen as well. But first off, the categories we decided were, number 1, better father. And not necessarily as in like who's a better father, but who's a better character as the father. Robert Duvall versus Ed Harris.
Exactly.
Better son, Robert Downey Jr. versus Jason Sudeikis. Better romantic interest, Vera Farmiga versus the aforementioned Elizabeth Olsen. Better score and soundtrack. They both have different. That's actually one of the few that's different.
This is my category.
This is definitely Jarvis' category. I mean, I love it too, but this is Jarvis' category. And finally, 5, better resolution, better climax, better way the whole thing shakes out, so to speak. But of course, what we do on this show is we do a little thing called snap judgment, because quite frankly, a lot of times we've done this show and we think it's going to go one way. And then after the categories are all laid out and we go through them, it ends up going another way. So we thought it'd be interesting from the get-go to go, what do we think is going to happen? And do we prove our snap judgment right or wrong? So in this case, you seem like you're chomping at the bit, Jarvis.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
This is a weird thing with the snap judgment. I'm totally like going to discuss it with you on the show, on the spot.
Oh, wow. I love this. Let's air it all out. Let's do it.
Is snap judgment a little anticlimactic? I know we're not always right. We're sort of giving away some of the fire or already like revealing some of our choices. Isn't that the case, though?
I guess, in a way, yes. I mean, well, let's talk about it, because we started.
I know this is good
TV
television. Definitely, like go behind the scenes here.
How the sausage is made. We actually talked about snap judgment because there were plenty of times where, like, we thought it was going to go one way and it didn't go that way. So, I mean, as far as I think probably our favorite example we always bring up is Ready Player One versus Tron. we both thought one way, and yet at the end of the day, we're like, wow, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be like.
Yep.
And that's happened quite a few times. There are times where a snap judgment is absolutely right because we are going to defend what we like about our films and go from there. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to? Are you going to tell me right now on air? Do you not want to do snap judgment for this one?
No, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm just thinking, is it a little anticlimactic when it comes to the show and us finally rendering the judgment?
I guess
maybe that's a question for the chat. So, like, be totally honest. Do you want to hear us do snap judgment or not?
Well, in the chat, if you ask me, or chat, if you're watching after the fact, in the comments, let us know if you like the snap judgment or if you want us not to do the snap judgment. I guess because it's kind of funny because it's one of those situations where it depends, really, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like if the snap judgment is accurate, yeah, we're giving it away. If the snap judgment is something that's like weird and not accurate, then it's like, well, that's kind of cool to see. So I mean, it really depends, doesn't it? I mean, like if we were talking about Tron versus Ready Player One, for example, it would have been a cool snap judgment because we would have been wrong. And when we're right, it's kind of like, well, then you're giving it away. But when you're wrong, it's fun. But like, I don't know how to I'd have to go back and look at the stats and look at the actuals, like how many times we were right versus how many times we were wrong.
I wish there is a statistic that shows when people close our show. Is it usually when we get the snap judgment, or is it when we just start talking?
Is snap judgment the way? Is that the way? Oh, we know now. We know what the final answer is going to be. I gotcha. All right. Well, we will talk. We'll continue to talk about that behind the scenes after the show's over.
Sure.
We'll see if we want to do it. But for right now, we'll throw it to you, Jarvie. What was your initial impression on where your snap judgment would lie? Which film is it?
The Judge.
You're going with The Judge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's more important to know what Jarvie's snap judgment is because obviously if Ed Harris is involved, I'm going to lean that way. But even with that in mind, I did love The Judge. But yeah, you're not wrong. My snap judgment is Kodachrome because I love Kodachrome that much more. And it's because of Ed Harris. But we'll go into that. All right. Fair enough. Let's move into the five categories. This is like the meat and potatoes of the show. This is where we're going to find out, talk about the both categories and see which film we like better. But I will say up top, apart from my snap judgment, I did love both movies. I thought both movies, they were similar to a degree, but they were also very different in some ways. But they both had that theme that is something I'm a sucker for. I love the father-son relationship. And I should say the fractured father-son relationship. It's like where they're both in a very bad place, but yet at the end of the journey, the end of the film, and you get to a point where they do reconnect in some way. Even if it's not a complete reconnection, it's a way that they can live with each other, they can show each other love, and they can move on. And it's kind of just this. It's a human connection we all need. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think these categories are, before we even get into them, they are so close. Each category is so close because the characters are really similar, yet different, but they are on the same level of quality.
Right.
Like they're so close.
It really is. Like they're not even like this. They're not like. I mean, the theme of the movie about father-son is similar, but everything else about the movie is completely different. And yet, there are definitely those archetype moments where you're like, yeah, that's I liken that to that. I can liken that to that. And it's like, which one's better? I don't know. They both are really great.
Same, but different.
Exactly. So let's get right into it. The first category is probably the easiest category for me, obviously, but I'm actually curious to see what Jarvie says, and I hope he's not going to break my heart. The better father character.
I'm going to be objective, dude. I'm not going to kiss Ed Harris's ass just because of it.
I know you are, and I'm going to try not to be too. And here's the thing. It is obviously Robert Duvall versus Ed Harris. I absolutely love Robert Duvall in this role. It's a very good role for Robert Duvall. He plays an older judge character who has a fractured relationship with his son, Robert Downey Jr. He's involved in an accident. He's got a medical condition that has led him to have memory loss. There's an accident involving a former
convicted. Yeah, someone he convicted.
Someone he convicted, and he's killed. And it has to do with like whether or not the judge is involved, how much is he involved, how much does he remember, because he has cancer and he has what's called chemo brain. He has a lot of lost memories. So it's a very deep role because you have to deal with the stature of the character, the relationship with Robert Downey Jr., the relationship with the family, like Vincent D'Onofrio and
D'Onofrio.
D'Onofrio. I can never say his name right. D'Onofrio. Yeah.
Vanessa.
Exactly. Vanessa from Daredevil. I love him. I actually loved him in The Cell. It's the first movie I ever saw him in. It was Jennifer Lopez. It's a great movie. You should really take a look. But it's a great character for Robert Duvall. And it's a very prideful character.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And
it is
that's-
very prideful.
That's where it comes down to this moment where he doesn't want anybody to know that he's mentally incapacitated to any degree because it might screw up his previous judgments and things like that. He wants to be the leader of the community. He wants to remain that leader of the community. And it's a wonderful role he's in. And we're putting him up against Ed Harris in this role. He is a celebrated photographer. Probably one of the more celebrated photographers. Like it's one of those things where America might not know who he is, but all the photographers in America know who he is. Like he's that kind of role where he's like famous in that niche.
And very successful.
Very successful. Yeah, he's been in all magazines. He's done great award-winning shoots, everything else. But he is legitimately an asshole, and he knows this. He's fully 100% on board that he too has a fractured relationship with his son, Robert Downey Jr. He too is dying of cancer, and it's about trying. Whereas the judge is like he's forced into a situation to reconnect with his son. In Ed Harris's case, and that it's about the whole idea is wanting to reconnect with his son to a degree before he moves on. Which is like both slightly different storylines, but they end up leading to a similar place. So it's Robert Duvall versus Ed Harris when it comes down to it. I mean, I guess we should probably more ask you because I love. I love Ed Harris more in this role, and the reason why, even if it wasn't Ed Harris, I love Ed Harris, like the idea of the humor in the Ed Harris role, the ability of him, like the interaction between him and Jason Sudeikis. To me, it's more what I wanted from this kind of movie. Robert Duvall is a great character, and I love his interactions with everybody else. But it's his role, his job with Robert Downey Jr. is it's special. It is magical to a degree. There's some moments where it's really touching, but it's not quite overall the same connection that Ed Harris ends up having with Jason Sudeikis. So I'm going to lead Ed Harris because obviously everyone knows I'm going to go that way. So I'm trying to be objective about it, but I did still lean that way anyway. So Jarvie, you can either tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong.
No, you hit all the right beats, but it is way closer to me than it is to you. I feel like the Duvall Downey relationship, their dynamic, it's deeper than I feel like with Sudeikis and Harris. But one thing you didn't talk about Ed Harris, he looks like he's on freaking steroids in this film.
Doesn't he?
Like acting wise and physique wise. Like the first time we see him beat those drums when he's wearing the tank top, dude is ripped.
When he's playing those drums,
his arms are like blown out. I was like, dude, it's got to be like 70. How old is he?
He is like 69. He might have turned 70 this year. Actually,
and I had Ed Harris never struck me as an actor who was in shape. Like, sure, he's like a slim guy, but never someone who'd be ripped. Like today's actors usually, like, they got good physiques, but Ed Harris never struck me as a guy. So in his 70s, to find out that he looks like that was amazing.
I loved when he started drumming and everything. I'm like, wow, damn! He not only is strong, he can rock out.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and he plays this cocky, out of tune father, but at the heart of it, he has his reasonings, and when we find out why he's like that, I think that the movie we'll get to resolution. But it's just what you say every time about Ed Harris. He gives his all. He's like, he even gives more than his all. He's like 110% in this movie. This role by Ed Harris, I gotta say, like, he's one of my top guys now. Like I could see myself put him into my top 10 actors of all time. And not to say that this is his greatest role in Kodachrome, but something clicked in me that he did in this movie. So I'm going to pick Ed Harris over Duvall as well. But what I loved about not hard to say loved about Duvall's scene, because that is a very tough scene to watch. But Duvall has a scene where he's in the bathroom, he's having trouble, he falls. That is a very raw, tough scene to watch. I'll just say I lost my father to a very similar condition than that Duvall has. He had the same type of cancer, and to see that depicted in the movie like that was really honest and sort of. But so I gotta commend them for going there, because it's a tough scene to shoot and to watch, and it really got to me. But I'm still going with Ed Harris, because I feel like he was. I don't know, dude's a rock star in this. Like, Duvall definitely is the more authoritative figure. Like, he's the judge, but Ed Harris is a freaking rock star in this movie.
You're right. You're wrong. I think part of what you're trying to say, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I honestly think Kodachrome as its whole is it's more of like a cliched story overall.
It is, yeah. They both are, actually.
And they both are cliched to a degree, but I mean, the characters are, but it's just like the performances of all three of them, and we'll get to them at this point. But Ed Harris specifically in the role elevates the script. The script themselves might be a little cliche. I'm not going to lie about that. But it is this raw look at these characters that really sell the whole story and make you get that involved.
Yeah, agreed.
They try to make there's times where like you almost expect the films to soften, to like make them like lovable characters to a degree. Like, oh, I don't even understand why they had a problem with this guy in the first place. No. They commit. Ed Harris in this role is a fucking asshole. He's like, there's sometimes like you give him the chance and he still makes himself an asshole.
For sure, yeah. That's the best scene I think for this is when he's visiting his brother, Bruce Greenwood. Dude, we should have had the better brother as well. D'Onofrio versus Bruce Greenwood. That would have been a good category as well.
That is a good. We could add that if you wanted to, but like, yeah, no, it's a good call. I love Bruce Greenwood. So yeah, go ahead.
He pretty much he goes to his brother's house. Their relationship has soured as well, and he just starts telling his brother that he used to date and fuck around with his wife, who's now his wife, who had no idea that they were together before. Like, you're at his house. Right. You shouldn't be talking about this stuff.
At that point, when you're dying, and like after so many years, he's like, yeah, we used to fuck. I used to fuck your wife. What are you doing at this point? But that's
Bruce Greenwood says, like, Ed Harris says, "Are you going to come over and hit me?"
Right.
He's like, "There's nothing left to hit."
Right.
That is like, dude, you just destroyed him with this one sentence.
And Harris knows it too, and he answers kind of like, "Yep, you're right. You're right.
Yep,
absolutely right." And that's why he's saying it though. There's nothing left to. He almost like it almost feels like he needs to do this because it's the only way he can feel even like a remotely bit alive. He wants that like anger and hatred towards us. He needs to feel something in a way. It's just so powerful stuff. I mean, it's similar the whole time. I mean, that's like probably the biggest scenario. There's plenty of times he has conversations with the Elizabeth Olsen character. It's all very raw, like things like you wouldn't say to people, but yet because he almost has this pathological need to say these things and to cut deep, that he does, and he goes on with it.
That is sort of his creed, what he lives by. When he's in the car, he talks about nothing good ever came from happiness. Like, happiness is bullshit. Like, and you can see that he built up his career, his ambitions as a photographer, that he's going to be driven by sex, rage, suffering, sort of conflict. And he says nothing good ever came from happiness, which kind of shows you what he is as a character.
Exactly what he is as a character, and it works so well for the most part. But all right, we've actually talked about this for a long time. We both agree that Ed Harris is a better character and better actor in this role. I'll say I love Ed Harris better than Robert Duvall. Anyway, that's my overall. But in terms of this show, he does win for Kodachrome. Although even someone as an Ed Harris fan as I am, Robert Duvall has a great character. There's
For
definitely
sure.
not wrong with that. His moments with Robert Downey Jr. are phenomenal.
They
he
are.
has a lot of good moments where like it's just like nobility about him, which
Mm-hmm.
is hard to replicate. It's really hard. And those scenes where he has this honor about him, you're like, you almost hate to watch it go down the way it's got to go down, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Totally.
Like Robert Downey Jr. starts pulling those cards that you know he's got to pull. Like you know for like almost like the whole film he's got to pull these cards. Do you almost feel like Robert Jr. like even though like it makes sense legally and it makes sense with like you want Robert Duvall to be exonerated or to have a happy ending. You want him to have to do what he has to do. But at the same time, you side with Robert Duvall. You're like, don't do it, don't put him through this because you know that that's more important to Robert Duvall, right?
Agreed. Dude, you're taking me through the emotions of the movie again.
Right? Exactly. It's what it is. It's a great movie that way. But before I do so too much, all right, we do agree. We still like Ed Harris and Kodachrome better as a more entertaining.
Just a hair. Because I could also see the Judge still work without Duvall. Like I wouldn't want to, but I could see the movie work. As like you said, Kodachrome feels like your more cliched movie, but Kodachrome isn't good without Ed Harris. I don't see anyone really elevating that movie.
Agreed. And there's that scene in there where he does, and I guess because Ed Harris is so strong in this role, and he's so strong with the bitterness. We talked about how much of an asshole he is, and how much that character he bites to feel. It's important to do that because it makes the turn, the moments of that he does let you in. It makes those even more poignant, and even more touching. Like because he does it very like when he's like in his prime. Like the one thing I mentioned, it's kind of in the trailer, but I still feel like it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. He's sitting down, like there's like a party going on outdoors. He's sitting with Jason Sudeikis, and he kind of sits there and he's like, he sits there and asks him, he's like, "Why did you come along to this?" I asked him. Ed Harris asked him. He really pretty much made Jason Sudeikis, the son's character, come. But he wants to know, like, why did you? And Jason has this like great like honest moment. He's like, I want to see like if you measured up to the asshole you've always been in my life. The one, and then he turns and he's like, just goes,
"How am I doing?
How am I doing?" And this thing is like, he's like, "Not doing bad. You're holding your own.
You're holding your own."
And Ed has this like great smile of like, yeah, I know, man. And it's such a great humanity moment. It's such a perfect look into that character. It's this little like, just this moment of humanity in there, and that's what makes the character so.
And comedic timing. Like you don't usually think of Ed Harris as a comedic actor,
right?
He has these moments in this movie, like the one you just said, and also when they're sitting at the dinner table. And he says, "I remember every shot I've ever taken, every last one of them." Sudeikis goes, "Everyone, that is impressive. When's my birthday?"
And just the silent. Blank slate that he gives you.
Bruce Greenwood says February 19th. Ed Harris goes February 19th. Like that comedic timing right there. Like that's perfect.
Perfect. It's needed for the role, but it lets you, it just those little slices that let you in. So I'm all in with you on that exactly. And the moments where he does finally break down, you're there with him and you feel it. And God, and like the moments I've never seen. And I can't say I've never seen, but one of the things I love about it is that, and we'll talk about this more when it comes into the climax, but the moment at the end where he's not there anymore, he still like overshadows the whole sequence in a way. Like you still feel that character there, and you're like, God, I love it,
dude. God, these final moments that both when we get to it, they're tough. They're both tough moments, both beautiful moments in a way.
Beautiful moments, but we will get there. Okay, so we both agree with Ed Harris.
We spend way too much time on Ed Harris.
Category one,
just the right amount of time.
Exactly. Let's move on to this one: Robert Downey Jr. versus Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah.
These are actually both.
I'll take this one if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
You started the last one.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So Jason Sudeikis in this role, I feel like he doesn't do enough when I watched the movie the first time. I was like, he's doing his same skit like I've seen, sort of like with less humor than in Horrible Bosses and these movies that he has, like Drinking Buddies. So he felt like a very casual sort of character, and I didn't see like a lot of character work in there. On my second watch, I realized that that exactly was the point of his character too. Because the first, when I heard about this movie, like Jason Sudeikis is a tour de force in Kodachrome, like sometime I was like, okay, good. Like this is his meaty dramatic role that he's totally gonna like blow out and show us and surprise us. But it wasn't. It was a casual. It was more subtle. But on my second watch, I realized that was the point. Like we weren't supposed to be getting this tour de force out of him, which the title was probably misleading of the article. But Robert Downey Jr. in The Judge, I'm sure you agree with me. He kind of still reminds you of Tony Stark in a lot of ways, right? Right. So
Yeah.
and he does his thing, but once you sort of get into his character and you start seeing past Tony Stark, you can see that there's a lot there. And I want more of these types of movies from Downey. He has depth. He always will have his sort of quips and weirdness about him, but that's him as a person. And I feel like he's this Denzel Washington type that just be yourself in movies, and I enjoy that. Like you don't need to do more, which he has in him because he's shown what he can do in was it Chaplin?
Yep, Chaplin.
Yeah. So we know that he has it. So in a way, again, both these characters in Kodachrome and in The Judge very similar because you feel like they're doing their thing. But I gotta go with Robert Downey Jr. I'm gonna go. I feel like this is his movie. This is his performance. This is his moment to shine, and he does. He elevates this movie, and I don't see it working without him.
Okay. I'll tackle this. I agree to a point what you're saying. They both kind of do play. It's basically Robert Downey Jr. and Jason Sudeikis playing themselves to a degree. I guess like fairly or unfairly. Now, Downey Jr. is more established than Sudeikis.
Of course.
So when Downey Jr. plays Downey Jr., it plays more solidly as Downey Jr., if that makes sense.
Of course.
I had a much harder time seeing past the Tony Starkisms. Now, I did see past them. I'm not going to lie. There's a moment where I'm like, okay, this is not quite Tony Stark. But since Chaplin and since, more importantly, since Iron Man, I have very much a hard time seeing anything but Tony Stark in the role. Now, Jason Sudeikis, I've seen in a couple movies, and he does pretty much play the same general type character. Although there was a more harder edge in this character than I've seen from him. But there's also a softer edge to this character than I've seen from him as well. Some of his scenes with Elizabeth Olsen really hit home to me. I think I have to slightly give the edge to Sudeikis, and only that
Really?
I see a different, like, I don't see enough of a difference between Tony Stark and his character in The Judge that I do in Jason Sudeikis. And it might be that I haven't seen enough Jason Sudeikis movies. It might be, honestly, that both of them are probably equally as, themselves in a way. I've seen enough of Tony Stark to be hammered home into that role. Jason Sudeikis, I love. There's certain moments in there where it really made sense, and it's more with the relationship, I think. And I think we might be getting into this a little bit in a few seconds when it comes to romantic interests. I believed more in the Jason Sudeikis Elizabeth Olsen romance than I did in the Robert
Did you
Downey
really?
Jr.
Okay.
Farmiga romance, and that's why. And I don't know why that necessarily is, and it might be actually. It's kind of weird that I'm actually voting on this category, and I'm basing some of it on the female interaction with it, like with other characters.
That's where I wanna object, sort of interject, if you don't mind. So try to think of the character work and the actor. Sure, chemistry is important. I got it. It goes under the lead category here. But try and think of effort and more like isolate the actor and character from the other actors and characters. I know I'm totally trying to convince you now.
You are.
But I feel like Downey he didn't get enough respect for this movie. I think this is his best movie aside from anything in Marvel that he's done. I even like this more than in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a lot of effort in this role, which or maybe not the best case every time, but I don't know. It feels like he's giving it his all. He's really sunk his teeth into it. As Sudeikis sort of feels like he's cruising through the role, and it works. He's enjoying himself. No, you stick to your guns. I feel like I gotta.
No. I'm trying to live in your thoughts. I'm trying to live in that and trying to feel that. But and it might honestly be like a snap judgment kind of thing. But I feel like I can't get out of the fact that I still never felt like it was more than Tony Stark playing a lawyer. Whereas the Jason Sudeikis role, I felt like I understood his character more. And like this guy who, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. He is the prodigy lawyer. He is the prodigy guy who's so smarter than everybody else, and he's going to do everything. Whereas Jason Sudeikis is more relatable to me. He's someone that, like, I mean, and partially because I'm a music guy. I love music, and I felt like that thing, like this whole idea of, like, I felt he is feeling music dying to him, like it's kind of becoming the top 40 thing, not about artists and everything else. And he really feels that, and Jason Sudeikis does a great job of portraying that to me. Like I empathize with his career and his interaction with the arts, and that makes it me even more that I want to see more from him. Whereas, like, I've seen the snarky lawyer role done many times. The brilliant snarky lawyer. I've seen done that many times, and this is basically just Tony Stark playing the snarky lawyer to me. There's moments of greatness in it, absolutely, but I love Jason Sudeikis' like his desperation, his need to connect on so many different levels.
It's weird to me. I don't feel like he's desperate. I feel like he's always. I don't ever like feel for him in that sense because it feels like he's always in control. He's not really worried about his life. Sure, there's some tough career choices that he made and probably has to make, but still, he doesn't feel like he's in any danger. Really, he feels like he's cruising.
Well, I guess I can see what you're saying. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. If you watch it like it depends on. I guess I think you're more detached from it than I am, and I guess maybe. It might be a case. And that just might be the case. I felt like every time, like when he basically tells the spare sevens to go fuck themselves.
Yeah,
like it's that moment of like I'm choosing my asshole father, my asshole family over my career, which is up until that point had been everything to him. His career, the music business, was everything to him. And he made that moment, and he had this like realization on his face. And it was this great performance from him. And I'm leaning towards Sudeikis. And I think this is where Robert Downey Jr., it hurts the character that is Robert Downey Jr. And that's hard for me to say because I love Robert Downey Jr. I love the character. And I think Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor. But sometimes when you have such a distinct role as Tony Stark, it's hard to see him as anything else. I have a hard time getting past that.
But don't you think it works here, the way that he is this? And one last push. I'll ask you this. Do you see Kodachrome, do you see the Judge being as good as it is without Downey? Is he more replaceable, or is Sudeikis more replaceable?
That's a very hard question. It's a very difficult question. I know where you're coming from for this. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you're wrong. I think Sudeikis is more of a blank slate in that sense, and that he's replaceable. But at the same time...
Yeah, it's tough to say because it's hard to unsee what you've already seen, right? But
that makes him more relatable to me. Mm. So I like Jason Sudeikis in that role better because it is more relatable. Because of that, I see myself in that role, and I engage with Jason Sudeikis in that role.
Now we're getting to the meat of it.
I don't engage with Tony Stark in the role. Tony Stark
I feel like I'm your psychologist here.
It is to a degree. But
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like I like Kodachrome better.
Wow.
As far as Sudeikis goes, I think Sudeikis good. I love Robert Downey Jr. in the role, but it's Jason Sudeikis for me.
I tried.
You
I
did
tried,
try.
folks.
You did try. You tried. It's all good. So we're there with that. Let's move on to romantic interests. We got Vera Farmiga versus Elizabeth Olsen, and I gotta say, and it's not like a broken record. I'm leaning towards. I'll say right off the bat that I'm leaning towards Kodachrome. But the reason why, and I will come clean 110% on this, I have a crush on Elizabeth Olsen. I love Elizabeth Olsen, like hands down. There's so many different times I've seen Elizabeth Olsen. I've been like, and it's funny because she's Scarlet Witch. So we're talking about Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see her as Scarlet Witch. I kind of see her. I've seen her in like other roles more recently. She was in the movie I can't remember the name of it right now that we love. With Jeremy Renner. With Jeremy Renner.
Oh, I just watched it last night. Wind River.
Wind River. Great
God,
role.
she's so
good in that role. But there's something about her that I really do have a crush on. I really love her in the role. At the same time, I've always been a big, huge fan of Vera Farmiga. Mm-hmm. Like, I first saw her in Up in the Air with George Clooney, and like I was like, okay. But then I've seen her in so many different things, like the Bates Motel and other things as well, and she's very good at what she does.
The Conjuring movies, she's in those as well.
The Conjuring movies as well.
That's where she blew up, I think.
That's probably her most famous role, but she's been in Godzilla, King of Monsters, and everything else as well. I'm trying to think which one. I do think like it's kind of funny. Like, I think Elizabeth Olsen is the more lovable role, even though she's kind of quirky. She's kind of like energetic. There's something like a little bit off about her in a good way.
Yeah.
But
interesting, because I'm on the opposite side.
Vera Farmiga, I think, is more off. She's this very quirky character in that, and in that way, she's almost more like appealing because she's so unique. You kind of want to see her more. Like, who is this girl? She starts telling you stories. You're like, oh, she is relatable. When she does let you in, it's like, it's this great moment of being let into that kind of character. But Elizabeth Olsen does have that too. This whole thing, like, she has this whole history of pushing people away, and she cheated on her man. Like, you find out like this whole thing. Oh, he cheated on you? No, I cheated on him. That's why you don't want to love me because I'm an awful person. And it doesn't really go too far into that.
Yeah, they should have given her a little more.
A little more. It is a weakness of the film where like you feel like you want to know more about. They give you the little touch of that, in order for her to go away, to get her out of the way, so that Ed Harris and Jason Sudeikis can have their one-on-one bit, so to speak. All right, I'll throw it out there. I'm going to give it to Vera. I'm going to give it to Vera Farmiga.
Wow, you surprised me there.
I do. I love Elizabeth Olsen in that role, but there is a weakness there that I understand. That's a snap judgment thing. I actually legit, if you told me before, I'm giving it to Elizabeth Olsen. Yep. I do like her character. I love Elizabeth Olsen. I do love a lot of what she does, and especially like the sequence with the music, the bit about like I love that scene with her and Jason Sudeikis in his bedroom. They start talking about like music and like live, and then later on she starts singing the live song.
Oh, that's such a good moment,
and it's such a great moment, right? So I would give it to her, like snap judgment. But the more I do think about it, the judge does a better job with that exact same type of role, because you need to take Vera Farmiga away in order to get Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall to have their moments together. But I think the judge does a better job of putting them back together and connecting them. Except for, I will say, the judge has one thing, and I said this in my review, and it's a weird thing. I don't think the love child angle needed to be there at all.
No, dude, I thought it was friggin' funny.
It was funny.
I thought it was funny as hell.
It was funny, but it seems so unnecessary. Like,
really?
What does that do to the story at all? Like, what does it add to the story except for like this weird? All right, so we see Robert Downey Jr. hitting on his maybe daughter.
Yeah, but which not hitting, like made out with her. They like full on made out, and that's what I loved about. Like, sure, it wasn't necessary, but this differentiated the judge from other legal dramas, or it's hard to say legal drama because there's more drama than legal part in that, but it gave it like some spiciness that you're like, holy shit, they went there. Like, is that like incest that I'm watching?
But it's like
But then
it's
they defuse it
distracting.
later.
It's distracting though, and it has a very little payoff. What's the payoff? Oh, it wasn't you, it was your brother. And that's it. Oh, okay, we can be happy together now. It just seemed like it was kind of like, well, that's what we're building towards. The whole thing that they're doing is built towards that climax. Oh, okay. Let's get this out of the way because we want to be together now. It just didn't do as much for me. Like overall,
was funny.
story. It's funny. It was humorous, but it didn't serve the story well to me. Like at the end of the day. But regardless, I will say that overall, as far as romantic interests go, I do think Farrah Farmiga is a slightly better love interest. Although I do love Elizabeth Olsen in Kodachrome. It's one of my favorite parts.
I know, and I'm totally with you because Elizabeth Olsen, like, she's also like low key my celebrity crush at the moment.
Right.
And but she's more, like you said, she's more like this girl next door vibe. And Vera Farmiga has this more quirky vibe, and also Vera has this sort of, I don't know, uniqueness and sass about her that a lot of actresses don't have, and her character is also very unique in that way. Like they have this back and forth with Downey.
Right.
They sort of get into like an argument, and then she storms off and still says, "I'll be thinking of you when I touch myself later." Like, sort of, it's such a weird thing to say, but totally shows her what kind of character she is. Like, that is, like, you want more of that because it's totally unexpected.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But like, again, kind of has a comedic effect to it. So I'm totally with you. I'm going with Vera Farmiga as well.
Okay.
Although I do love Elizabeth Olsen, and I feel like her chemistry with Sudeikis is there, but I feel like she wasn't given enough in this movie, and that's exactly what you said as well.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. I do. At the end of the day, I'd rather be with Elizabeth Olsen. But
that is another that is an interesting question. I don't know if I.
I should say, honestly speaking, I mean the character, not necessarily the.
Okay.
Like, not the actresses, because that's a totally different. I can't go there because I don't know them. I can only go by the characters.
This is a whole different show.
That's true. Who we gonna date? But yeah, I will give Vera Farmiga the nod for now. Let's move into scores and soundtrack, which is your forte on this one. You specifically asked this category.
I asked for this.
And tell me about what you think.
This is where these movies differentiate the most, I feel like. Kodachrome has this sort of analog man in a digital world approach to it, and the music shows it as well. It's there is a score to the movie, but on Kodachrome, I definitely focused on the soundtrack, and it glorifies rock music and photography and like how great the good old days were. So I feel like the soundtrack gave a lot of atmosphere and just the right type of style to the movie. Now, The Judge has a score by Thomas Newman, and that is a brilliant score. Like, it's an old school type of score. It reminds me a lot of what Hans Zimmer did in the 80s, like sort of like with this Rain Man sort of levity to it. And again, I'm going to stress how important the music and the score is to a movie. And I feel like in The Judge, Thomas Newman raises it up the bar. And The Judge's score is actually on my like scores and soundtracks playlist. I listen to it daily, and it just gives me this. It really, I freaking love it. I feel like Thomas Newman is like slowly becoming one of the greatest movie composers. He has a very unique and awesome style to him. I'm gonna give this to The Judge, but I do love the fact that Kodachrome went to like the old school route and sort of focused more on the soundtrack. But I can't look past The Judge's score and Thomas Newman.
All right, I feel like this one is like, I'm looking at you, I am the mirror of you in a way. I am giving it to Kodachrome, and part of it is because I am a rock and roll guy. I played music before in my life. I played a lot of guitar. I had a band at one point and everything else. And that's why I empathize with Jason Sudeikis' character to a degree. I like Thomas Newman's score in general. I like Thomas Newman as a composer. But the other day, I almost feel I kind of felt it was forgettable. I mean, it's good, but I can't hum. I couldn't like hum it to you
Really,
right now.
I could hum it. If I could sing, I'd hum it.
Right. I mean, it's not. I remember liking it while I was watching it. But I'm a sucker for a well curated soundtrack, well curated play. I mean, there's some soundtracks that are not that good in terms of you just kind of throw whatever songs they have on there. But there's certain moments where I loved watching them put the score together, and I mentioned it before, even the live song. Where they come together and do the stuff. There's a lot of little things like that. They don't even use the song Kodachrome by Paul Simon. It's kind of funny. There's music moments in there where you kind of feel like I'm engaging with a true artistry. And it's about, and exactly what you said, it's analog versus digital. It's this whole like old school mentality. And it works so much. And Kodachrome uses the soundtrack as almost like what I mean.
It's like a character in the movie. The music is.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That's because I'm interrupting you. That's
no. That's exactly no. You're saying exactly what I was saying because I was about to say that we do a Star Wars show, and we talk about Star Wars, and I always talk about John Williams' score for Star Wars is like another character of the movie, and it's not very often you see that. But Kodachrome to me is exactly that same type of feel. That alternate, that little like alt rock singer songwriter vibe is so important to the very fabric of the film. It's hard to show I think Ed Harris's character photographer, they want to show you the analog, the Kodachrome moments and everything else. It's not as easy to show visually in terms of the movie, but you can get the similar feel by having that soundtrack the way it is. And it works so well as a moment of the movie that I feel it associates more with the movie than the Judge's score by Thomas Newman does with the Judge. So I have to give it to Kodachrome for that very much fact. I can picture almost anybody else. I shouldn't say anybody else, but I could picture somebody else filling in for Thomas Newman, doing a fine score and doing well. But it doesn't change. Like the score doesn't change my view of the movie. It doesn't get me into the movie anymore. Like you listen to it on its own, that's fine. It's great. The Kodachrome soundtrack helps me get involved with the story more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. We're mirroring because this is everything you're saying is what makes the Judge great for me. The score, the style, the atmosphere. It creates a character in the movie for me. Well, in Kodachrome, they pretty much say that the music is a character because they talk about the music that they listen to, and the Judge obviously they don't.
Very much so.
But yeah, I don't know. There's some magic about the Thomas Newman score, and I should send you a link later of the theme and just let you listen to it.
Yeah, you should,
because it is very melodic, and you can hum. I'm like humming it in my head right now.
You might be right. I mean, like I'm thinking about it a couple days later. I don't get it, but like that's me right now. And so
absolutely.
That's why I got it at this point without thinking of that. Maybe in a couple of days I'll change my mind, but this is where I'm going with right now. I got to give it to Kodachrome.
All right.
So,
all
right. We are
last category,
the resolution. I kind of want to let you go first on this one as well because I'm kind of stemming back and forth in my head about a couple different things. So I want you to go ahead and take this, even though you took the last one. Take this one as well.
This is a tough one, like because they're so similar with some minor differences, but they're both very hard hitting in different ways. They are almost identical in some ways because at the very spoilers, at the very final moments we see both these father characters die, and I'll say this: I feel like the Judge has more of a, for lack of a better word, a more glorified death scene. They're on the fishing boat, they're talking, and Duvall tells Robert Downey pretty much like, "You're the greatest lawyer. Yeah, you're my favorite lawyer." Something that he asked him before. And moments after that, he passes. So it kind of feels like your perfect moment. This type of thing doesn't really happen in the real world. Like people don't die after they just said their most important thing. In Kodachrome, we get a more abrupt, more of a shocking death scene. And there's something in Ed Harris's eyes that when it happens, he's sort of no one knows what happens after death, but he sort of glimpses into the unknown. He gets shocked and he watches. There's something so raw about that moment. And it happens in an unexpected way, because in The Judge, you're pretty much expecting for Duvall to pass. Interestingly, I'm talking myself out of my initial decision, because I feel like if I'm talking about these movies, The Judge has a more memorable conclusion or resolution. But Ed Harris no, because I can't. Ed Harris is a different category. I have to base this on the overall resolution. I'm still going with The Judge, and I'm going with The Judge. I totally talking against my point here. Kodachrome has a more realistic resolution, but when I'm watching movies, I want more magic. I don't need stuff to be realistic, and the way Duvall passes is something that hopefully, like, this is how this is gonna sound so horrible. This is how a parent, when they pass, this is how it should happen. Let's say doing what they love, talking about their love together, and it's beautiful, it's magical. It still hurts, of course, but there's this magic to it, which is why I'm giving this to The Judge.
I'm going to try to talk you out of it still. I'm going to try to talk you out of it.
Try.
It is completely Kodachrome for me, by far. The Judge's ending to me is one of the weakest parts of the film for me.
Really?
And I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying compared to some of a lot of things. Like, and exactly what you say, it's too perfect. Like, he goes to jail and commits, and, like, he does the time. And it's like, it loses a little bit of the immediacy for it. Robert Downey Jr. then comes back. They get him out of jail, and he comes, and Robert Downey Jr. is supposedly this, like, newer character 8 months later, and they have this moment, and exactly, he's like, "Oh, you're the greatest lawyer I ever knew." Dies. It's too easy. It's too easy. To me, the resolution of Kodachrome is he gets what he needs. He gets the Kodachrome film and everything else. And he dies. It's not even Ed Harris at this point, to me, honestly. It's the moment where he gets the film and he brings it back. And it might be predictable, and that could be a predictable thing to a degree. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's definitely some predictability to it. But Jason Sudeikis plays it so well for me. He starts, like, he got a hint of the scene in the hospital where Ed Harris talks about, like, how his favorite moments in life, despite everything he's ever said to the contrary, was the few times, like, he fed his kid at night, he fed Jason Sudeikis at night, and, like, hung out with him and, like, laid with him on his chest. And you realize the whole time was about getting this film done, about this years he took of his family. And it's all about, he wants Jason Sudeikis to do this show for him. And it doesn't matter what the show is. It doesn't matter if it's in front of millions of people or just in front of him. And he puts the cameras in the film. And the moment where he sees, like, I'm about to cry. Like, Jason Sudeikis sees, like, that first shot is of him and his mother. And it's so beautiful to me. That, like, it's so raw. It's so raw. That, like, it's so wonderfully deadpan played by Sudeikis. There's not a lot that he gives. It's just that little hint of, oh my God. Oh my God. And Elizabeth Olsen comes in, and, like, you can even say that's cheap and that's, like, they don't give it enough credit, or, like, she comes in, like, well, there's no, it's a safe ending to have her come back without really solidifying the relationship. But it's necessary to watch them together and watch Jason Sudeikis, like, finally see that, like, this is what the whole film is about. Is that Harris is trying, in the only way that character can, to show how important the relationship was. And it's so much better than just saying, "You're the son I never had," or "You're the greatest lawyer I've ever been." It's this visual sense of, this is what this entire movie has been about. This is what the entire journey has led to. How could it not be more important than just saying, "You're the best lawyer I've ever seen in my life"? Like, those are words. And actions are so much more important than words to me. And that visualization of it gives me everything I needed. I'm crying thinking about the Kodachrome thing. Whereas the Judge, I'm like, it was nice. It was nice ending. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cute. I give this to Kodachrome 110%. 110%.
Dude, I know what the score is, so my hat is off to you for fucking going all in on this. I know how much you need this. And bravo, like, you convinced me.
Yeah, right?
Like, well done, PLD. Well done.
I got a single man tear coming down a little bit this way. It's what it is, man.
I don't want to agree with you because I know the score now. But you are correct. You are right. And yeah.
I'm really seriously having a hard time finishing up this entire conversation right now because like it's that important to me and that important to me. So, but okay. It's true. You are right with the score, and I wasn't doing that to make that happen because it is truly how I feel about the film. And I read some of the reviews, and they didn't like it. They said it was schmaltzy. They said it was. I don't even know. They said a couple different things. They said it was basically cheap and chintzy, and I couldn't disagree more. And maybe it's just where I was at the time when I watched it, but it sold me 100,000%, and I cried 100. I cried at it. I still cry. I'm still crying at it now. It's a beautiful moment to me, and it's the best resolution possible. You don't need the actual interaction. You don't need it. You don't need it. It's just he knows, we know, everyone knows what you need. So, well, since I convinced you, I am.
I'm still amazed by your argument in this.
Performing Oscar-winning rewards.
Well done.
Right there.
Well done.
Thank you. It is what it is. And after I convinced Richard Harvey, it is true. The winner of this match is Kodachrome 6-4. It's a hard-fought victory, and I will say 110% you should watch The Judge because The Judge is a phenomenal movie on every different level. It's a beautiful from start to end. Even the things I've said negatively about it, it's not negative. It's more just in comparison.
You got to compare them exactly.
It's
you
a comparison thing in general.
Exactly. Both these movies are 4.5 stars out of 5 for me.
Yes.
Almost perfect movies in that regard.
100%.
So, and I'll say, like, if me and Paul have convinced you to, we'll probably rewatch it because if you're watching this show, you probably don't want to get spoiled. If you want to rewatch the movies after watching this, like that's made my day. Like, if you're rewatching this, just leave it in the comments. That will like mean the world to me if I know that we convinced you to rewatch the movie.
Or even watch the movie for the first time in a way.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
As well. DM you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, DM me. Let me know that this changed and everything else because I really would love to hear other people's thoughts on it besides our own. But I think that's where we'll end it now. I think anything else beyond this would be just ridiculous to go on to. Richard, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Richard Eric with a K Jarvie. You can find me on PLD projects talking Star Wars with Paul DiNuzio, Matty Gunner, and Bidor. We kind of have a pretty awesome team now when we're talking Star Wars, and we want to continue that. Probably do something more. Maybe even talk Thrones at some point. That could happen.
Good.
And as always, on Action Industries, on Class Action Weekly with Paul DiNuzio. You can find me here.
Okay. I'm at Paul_DiNuzio on Twitter. You can find me on Action Industries. Both I produce for Ben and Drew on most of their shows, Action Guys, Action Unfiltered. I also co-host on The General Debate and Root of the Question, which is something we do in Action Industries. I produce for SCN Network for Coming Up Next. I am also on Call to Action. We talk Schmodown, Movie Trivia Schmodown, and the aforementioned PLD products. Mandalorian Season 2 has ended, and it kind of feels kind of sad that we've ended now because we just feel like we found our groove with the team we've had, with Richard, with Matty Gunner, who you saw earlier, and with Bedore. We have had discussions. We probably won't have an episode next week necessarily, but we are going to be discussions about how to, because we don't know exactly how we're going to continue it without the Mandalorian to discuss. But I think we might continue Star Wars in some way, so keep an eye out on that. And of course, we also have like 10 Star Wars series coming, so I'm sure there's gonna be other stuff going on with that.
Trailer reactions,
trailer reactions, things like that. Exactly. And yes, there was mention of a Game of Thrones watch along. I'm not sure how that's gonna go, but probably us four, maybe adding Danny Ramirez because she's a big Game of Thrones fan as well.
Love you, Danny.
Yeah, but love you. Yeah, absolutely love Danny. But otherwise, that's where you can find us. And I thank Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. We give you a salute, giving us this little slice on the interwebs. Always a pleasure and an honor to represent the Action Industries brand and Action Army. And until next time, justice has been served. And of course, I remember the court is adjourned. We love you. We salute you. Take care. Have a good day. I gotta find the thumbnail before it can end. So, all right, I'm gonna do it now.
The ending.
Bye now. Happy holidays, everybody.